And at some point, he drinks in front of me. At first, I think it was like a Malbec or a wine or something. And I remember we hadn't, like, it kind of started an argument. And that was upstairs in that room that we just looked at a picture of, by the sunflowers. That's more or less where we were standing, just closer to the kitchen. And we get in an argument, and I shove past him, just stomp off. And he grabs me, and we have an argument about me walking away, and am I walking out of this? And in my head, I was like, I actually wasn't thinking of leaving yet, but that would later be going through my mind. We had a brief interaction, and I don't remember the exact sequence of things. I wish I did. I have a lot of flashes. It gets a little bit more confusing from my ability to recall everything in a linear way a little later on as things got crazier. But for this part, the first night, what I distinctly remember is at one point, I don't think I had gotten very far, or maybe I came back into the room, but when he shoved me, I went flying across these parakeet floors. I mean, just skidding across these floors. And I remember thinking it just looked so easy for him to throw me around like that, I just slid.
All right, I'll go first on this one. So now let's pay attention to the word remember. We've heard it peppered in and out here so far through these videos, just a little bit here, a little bit there, and now we're going to be listening for it. And let's listen for the things described and how she describes things when she uses the word remember. Not a whole lot here, just a couple of times, but coming up, we're going to see it go crazy with that word. When we hear that word, she's looking right at the jury most of the time. I remember. Pay attention to that too. So we're beginning to see her body language change here as she becomes more animated. There are words and phrases that she uses and gestures she uses energy-wise to get things up and get things happening. She's starting to get this thing. She's got to get it rolling because there's a lot coming up here in a couple minutes. It's supposed to get very graphic here. However, things are as they should be at this point. Everything looks pretty much the way it should be. Everything is congruent. Her illustrators are on point. Everything energy-wise is where it should be, and everything is working together. Everything, she's got this one going very well. Everything looks good. So let's talk about PTSD just for a second. I'm not an expert on it at all, but I know about it. I've read about it. I think I have a basic understanding of it. And I think she's trying to make it sound like she has PTSD because what she's done is she's been told to, or she's read about it and said, here's what PTSD is, and we're going to mix this in here to make it sound like this guy's giving you that from the way he's acting towards you. Like I said at the beginning, people have this from situations like this. We know that. I'm just telling you what we're seeing or what I'm seeing in this video here. That's where I'm going with this. When she talks about having flashes and scenes about what happened and loss of memory, those go right down the line for PTSD. Also, when she says she can't remember things in a linear way,
it gets a little bit more confusing from my ability to recall everything in a linear way.
I'm not the smartest guy in the world. Look at this haircut and this bad mustache and these glasses. But I'm smart enough to know when somebody has heard something and they're parroting it. One of my favorite things in the world to pay attention to is sentence structure and how someone structures a thought or an idea as they start going through trying to relay that idea to you. As she's doing this, she knows she has to throw in that word linear somewhere. And you don't say in a linear way, you say in a linear fashion. That's the way it's properly used. I don't think I'm not saying she's an idiot or anything like that. But I can tell you when somebody reads a lot, and again, I can tell you when somebody's parroting something they've heard. Greg and I were in Louisville talking to some people at a neurological department there as we were going to do some studies. And I can tell you pretty much after talking to somebody for 15 or 20 minutes what they're reading or what kind of reading they're into or what they like to pay attention to, what they like to read about. And I nailed this one guy in philosophy all the way down to his author, who he had just been reading, by just talking to him for a few minutes. It's sort of a parlor trick, and I can teach anybody how to do it. And in this, what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing and her talking, she doesn't read a whole lot. She's going to say she reads a whole lot, but she doesn't, because her sentence structure is that of a high school student's almost, when she starts talking and starts describing things. The structure to it, my structure when I talk really, really fast, and it's really hard to understand me sometimes because I'm trying to get all the information out that I can. Having said that, I do pay attention to when people structure their sentences when they're creating an idea and how to do that. She's gotten information. She's been reading over it the day before that or that day, and she's remembering these things she's supposed to say about the flashes, about remembering scenes, and not remembering things in a linear way when it should be linear fashion. That's what we're hearing here. That's what's happening here. So I'm not saying she doesn't have PTSD, but I'm saying she's acting like she has it, and she's trying to pretend like she doesn't know what it is and that these things are part of PTSD. That's what I think's going on there. Chase, what do you got?
I tend to agree. If somebody reads this book, this is the book that you diagnose mental disorders with. It's got every possible disorder you can think of. And then they fake having a disorder. That's a whole different thing, and it's a huge accusation. This is just my opinion. That's called malingering. I did 2 years of study on this, and this was my textbook, The Clinical Assessment of Malingering and Deception. And it's made for court trials and depositions, surprisingly. In this, we see a lot of these indicators, exactly what Scott was just talking about, and I don't think you've been through that class, but you know exactly there's the standardized behavior for that kind of thing, and we're seeing it here in this video. So the first thing I had in my notes here was start paying attention to every time she says, remember, here. And let's talk about a few red flags that are present here. There's drinks in front of me, present tense. I remember, there's an argument in past tense. We get in an argument. He grabs me, present tense. We had a brief interaction. There's hiding time and past tense shifting there. What I distinctly remember, we're hearing that word again, and it came up right when the physical thing started happening. And what I remember, again, slid across the floor. Then there's hesitancy. Then there's distancing language. Then there's an eye flutter, but only at the points of abuse. The eye fluttering, where there's a rapid closure of the eye when we want to get rid of a thought, we see that there. But we also see it during periods of deception. So the accuracy of her memory is a little bit flawed, but becomes somehow superhuman, 100% accurate when recalling only times of abuse. And this is clinically written here in the forensic interrogation methods and the forensic psychology methods of detecting this kind of stuff. Maybe I'm no expert, but there's a sharp movement into internal dialogue at the exact moment that she's recalling the physical altercation, a physical event. Her eyes move down here. I was not a huge believer until Greg actually convinced me of this, that you ask somebody to recall something or to rehearse a line in their head, and they'll move down that direction. She narrates her sliding across the floor in third person with her hand, and has done every single other demonstration. I've watched every interview that she's done. I did this for 10 hours yesterday in first person up to this point, with the exception of the comments regarding the abuse. So everything is in first person as she's experiencing it until the abuse starts being brought forward. And then she's narrating in third person, like she's showing you something from a movie or a screenplay. That was a lot. I apologize. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah. So let me get this right, Chase. If I was kind of acting the part of somebody with PTSD, I could take a look at some of those manuals and books and kind of look at some of the behaviors that happen and kind of perform those behaviors. And I might stand a chance of looking to the layperson, something like a jury or something like that, because they're meant to be, there should be no experts in there. They should be just kind of ordinary people. Just looking at it, I might be able to come across as having experienced trauma. And if I was doing that kind of research as an actor, I might have come across, just by Googling around, a study that says that people who've experienced trauma and have PTSD do a lot of tense shift when they talk about the violence being perpetrated. And so I might start doing that. I might start doing that. But if I did start doing that, and I'm an actor, I might kind of slip up now and again and get it wrong, because I'm having to make it up as I go along, because I haven't been written a script. Because you hope as an actor that you get really good writers, and they do all the research and they write you really good scripts, and then it's all kind of accurate. And then people, give you an award, they give you an Oscar because they go, that was really good. You were just like somebody with PTSD, and you take the award, and what you don't say is, they wrote it really well. It was just me. Imagining the situation, saying the words that somebody else wrote, just looked like I was that. I wasn't. Anyway, because that might be happening here. I'm not saying it is, but it could be happening there, because she says, I shoved past him, just stamp off. She goes into that present tense. So she's okay about putting her own aggression in present tense as well. And so that's probably a good thing. If she puts all aggression in the same tense, that's probably okay. I'm with you on that. I don't recall, I wish I did. And then she says, well, I distinctly remember. Well, sorry, you can't have both. You can't have, but maybe you can. Maybe you can. If you've looked at PTSD, maybe you can have both things. You can go, and especially if you're kind of getting that idea across to an audience of some sort, they might forgive you just a little bit more. Okay, if you put yourself across, it's just flashes. It's just, imagine it's just flashes that happen. So I wish I could recall that thing. I can recall this thing really, really well, by the way. Well, after she says what I distinctly remember, we get a lip lick to the side of the mouth, which is totally off baseline. We haven't seen that from her before. Feels to me like that's stress. I don't think, she says, I don't think I had got very far. Maybe I had got back to the room. Hang on. I shoved past him, just stomp off. And now what she distinctly remembers is, I don't think I'd got very far. Maybe I'd got back in the room. Okay, so how did that happen? Because when I shove past somebody and stomp off, like, I'm gone. Like, I'm not coming back again. I'm gone, but she's back in there, and we don't know how. But when he shoved me, okay, hang on, now we've gone to past tense. This isn't making any sense, because that should be in present tense. So now I'm totally confused. But I guess, if you've had trauma and PTSD, then all bets are off. I guess it's a bit of a scramble. I went flying across the parquet floor. I think she says parakeet floor, but it's parquet. It's a parquet floor. So there's shoves and there's throws. I don't know what it is, whether it's a shove or a throw. It probably can't be both. So maybe you want to pick one of them.
And I remember thinking it just looked so easy for him to throw me around like that,
It looked so easy. Well, I think you said this, Chase, but that's the wrong angle now. It can't have looked so easy. It would be if somebody shoves me across a parquet floor and I slide across it, yeah, I would say it was so easy for that person to shove me. I wouldn't be the external camera angle, doing a nice slow pan around that. This one's a dog's dinner. It's a complete mess. It's all fallen to bits around this. And I think if there is an act going on here, and I think we've got some good ideas that there could be, it's not being sustained very well, unfortunately. Greg, what do you think?
Yeah, so everything we're saying is our opinion. In my opinion, she's done some homework here. That sounds like a checklist. Hey, let's see. Got that? Yep, got it. Nope, yep, got that too. I've been around a lot of people with PTSD, and it can happen to a person from something very minor. It can. And other people, it may take something horrendous to give them PTSD. If you're a rage-filled person and you do something rageful, you can't keep things together in order either. So I'll just leave it at that. That's my opinion there. But let's hit a couple of things. Remember, I told you she does a lot of that weird face, condemning face, just to punctuate. She does it here the same for the room with the sunflowers as she does for this argument. So that's just telling you that's just the way she punctuates. Doesn't mean that something really happened. Words, however, really matter. And she says, shove past him, strong shove, stomp off with an emphatic lower jaw when she does it. There's a lot of emotional eye accessing there. And then she gets to that thing where she says, we had a brief interaction, and she actually shows disgust and a tongue jut. Something's up right here. I'm going to also give you two things to watch from here on. I think she's done her homework. She does a one shoulder shift as she illustrates with the other hand when she says, maybe I was in the room, maybe I wasn't, because I think she's in some heated moment here. And so putting that story together is a little tough. She does more illustration at sliding across the floor than she does at being hit or shoved. And she does more illustration at shoving and sliding across the floor than she does at fists and at slapping. Start paying attention to that. It makes me think that the further she has to reach to give you harsh details, the less likely she is to be illustrative for it. Could that be a result of PTSD? Don't know. Never seen anybody that was that way, but it comes out in different ways in all people. This just makes me suspicious. I'll leave it at that.
And at some point, he drinks in front of me. At first, I think it was like a Malbec or a wine or something. And I remember we hadn't, like, it kind of started an argument. And that was upstairs in that room that we just looked at a picture of, by the sunflowers. That's more or less where we were standing, just closer to the kitchen. And we get in an argument, and I shove past him, just stomp off. And he grabs me, and we have an argument about me walking away, and am I walking out of this? And in my head, I was like, I actually wasn't thinking of leaving yet, but that would later be going through my mind. We had a brief interaction, and I don't remember the exact sequence of things. I wish I did. I have a lot of flashes. It gets a little bit more confusing from my ability to recall everything in a linear way a little later on as things got crazier. But for this part, the first night, what I distinctly remember is at one point, I don't think I had gotten very far, or maybe I came back into the room, but when he shoved me, I went flying across these parakeet floors. I mean, just skidding across these floors. And I remember thinking it just looked so easy for him to throw me around like that, I just slid.
If you like this video, get the full body language breakdown and analysis on our main channel by clicking this video right here.